Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn. Hector, I see you. Betty, Sarah, thank you for joining us. Setsuko, Janice, pleasure to meet you. Lauren Stalker, hello, sir. Deborah, Shelley, wonderful to have you all here. My name is Ian Blackburn, and this is our session on Value Bordeaux. As a wine shop, merchant of wine, we have a pretty large selection of different things, and each week here at Zoom into Wine, we show off some different wines and talk about anything you guys want to talk about. But we really tried to keep the topicality flipping all over the place. We've got a really fun lineup of different tastings coming up, and I think you're really going to enjoy tonight. I love buying Bordeaux. Bordeaux's always something that has some really nice upside. I think Bordeaux can actually be a real value and still be very delicious. And we found some really good wines over the last few years. Some I'm kind of in a position where we pick a few to take big positions on, and then a few we buy just a small amount, see how it's received. And it's got a little bit of a game because you can really put all your money, all your eggs in one basket. But we try to have a nice collection available for you. And I'll look at that in a little bit and see what else we have on the website. But what we're coming out of right now, 2000, we've been on an incredible run in Bordeaux. You know, global warming is stressful for the producers, and there certainly still is quite a bit of vintage variation, each year being a different roller coaster of heat events and frost events and incredible rain and lack of rain. And it's been a wild 10 years. But these type of extremes can really create some interesting character. And 2015, 2016 are arguably the two of the greatest vintages ever. But there's nothing wrong with any of the vintages in the last 10 years. In fact, I often shop in the lesser, sought after vintages, because what they do in the tougher vintages is they'll take their best fruit that they used to put in their top bottles, and they may not even make a lot of their top wine in a tough year. They'll take it and they'll declassify it to a softer wine that they can sell a little easier. And those top wines, there's huge expectations, and when the wines are really good, they're going to sell for a lot of money, and they don't want to jeopardize your trust of that. So they're going to declassify a lot of that fruit into the softer bottlings. And so often I shop vintages like 14 and 12, which have a lot of merit to them. And but unfortunately, to find anything of value from those vintages now is getting a little tougher. But a lot of the higher end wines, the top wine, I looked at some Côte d'Estournel today that's $400+ a bottle in a great vintage, but in a tougher vintage like 14 or 12, maybe half of that. So I'm always looking for value. I'm always looking for great names, but also little producers like we're going to taste today. They're kind of farmer wines. And, the region of Bordeaux is fascinating. I'm not sure how many of you, raise your hand if you've been to Bordeaux. Maybe you've been over there, across the pond. It's right on the coast. We'll take a look at that here. I got a nice little PowerPoint for you. And let me see if I can find that. One second. Where'd my PowerPoint go? Let's see. I'm working from a laptop tonight, and the experience here on this side is a little bit more challenging, but let me grab the PowerPoint so you can see it. Yeah, great job, Ian. Great. There we go. Okay. All right, now I've got it in position. All right, let's go in and take a look at what we've got for us. These are the 5 wines and the order that we're going to be tasting them in. Each of you have got, well, some of you have got the full bottles and some of you have our little 2-ounce tasting jars. Hector, could you show people what that 2-ounce tasting jar looks like, just in case they're watching on Facebook and they don't have the wine? It's just a really nice little decanter. We poured those yesterday and we deliver them today. And these are the type of wines that actually really are thankful for having a little time in the decanter. Sometimes I stress out a little bit about that, but not with these babies. They're, really going to enjoy their ride in the decanter. But we're going to go from a Bordeaux Blanc, which is easy to figure out, to wine number 2. And a lot of these come from larger growing zones, and they're not single estate wines, but they do carry better value for that reason. And we'll continue down our slideshow. Let's take a look at the region of Bordeaux, which is in the southwest corner of France. As you can see, the little red dot up here in the corner. And England is very close by. And this really became England's growing region. In fact, they considered it their claret. That's the nickname that they gave this wine. And the way these wines originally started selling, and even till today, is the big investment banks would come to Bordeaux and taste the wines and take their positions, get the Bordeaux over into England and put them down into their cellars. You could go back far enough in time where they used to buy these wines in the barrels, and then the actual merchants would buy the wine and bottle them, being sent the barrel. And if you go back far enough in time, there were literally hundreds of people that used to bottle different Bordeaux wines. And so you'd have to find out who the bottler was in the collectible Bordeaux market anyway, because the glass bottle used not to be that handy and not that strong and not that dependable. And so this was an efficient way to get wine around the world. And in fact, a really interesting story is told by the winemaker at Ridge Cellars, who was originally a Bordeaux importer. And the reason he was importing Bordeaux is that they would send over the French oak barrels. And then he started putting California wine in the French oak barrels that he was getting, importing Bordeaux. Pretty cool. All right, so as I look at the Bordeaux region, one of the most distinguishing features, obviously you got the ocean. Some areas are very inland, some are at altitude, some are near bodies of water. This just happens to have an amazing Mediterranean Ocean influence. And there's this estuary that runs down the middle of Bordeaux. It's called the Gironde, and it separates the left from the right. And when people refer to right bank, they're talking about wines that come from over here, and left bank, wines that come from over here. The left bank is where the real money went back in the 1600s. The big moneyed wine producers bought very significant estates. And you've got places, like this is the city of Bordeaux right here. Oh, sorry, that didn't work. Come on, annotate. There we go. Right there. That's the city of Bordeaux. And then you've got places like Margaux, Saint-Julien, Pauillac, Saint-Estèphe. They're right in an order, right along the Gironde River, very close to the riverbed. This ocean used to cover the entire place, and then when the oceans recessed and pulled back, it exposed this kind of marshland, and it took a long time, but they built this land up to be sustainable for viticulture, and that's a unique feature of the Medoc. It used to be all swampy and marshy and stuff, and we've come a long way from there. Now, a lot of people think that these wines are Cabernet dominant, but actually the most important grape variety in Bordeaux is by far Merlot. And then in the top wines of, say, Margaux, the top wines of Pauillac, the top wines Saint-Estèphe, et cetera, they'll really use that Cabernet muscle for their very best wine, but they'll always have some Merlot right behind it. And then on the second wines, they'll be very Merlot dominated. Merlot is easier to grow, it's easier to sell, and it's a little more dependable, whereas Cab Franc and Cabernet can be a little more difficult. On the right bank, the soils change drastically. You've got a lot of alluvial, sandy soils on the left bank, but on the right bank over here, and especially in the premier growing zones, right in this spot here, and I apologize again, it says that I've got the annotate on, but it's not doing it. So it's right in there. That's where you've got your Pomerol, your Saint-Emilion. That's the right bank. And that's a lot of clay and limestone. And clay retains water. Cabernet hates water. It hates growing in like wet. So it loves drinking water, but it doesn't want to, the vine doesn't want to just sit there in a puddle. And that's often what's happening. So the soils over here in the Medoc are famous for how fast they drain. I was standing at Chateau Margaux, looking out the window during a rainstorm when the famous Chateau president, his name was Paul Pontier, said, you know what makes Chateau Margaux so special? Look out the window, no puddles. The rain was coming down as fast as it could be, but there was no puddling in the vineyard, just drainage left and right. So really important for Cabernet. On the clay side over here on the right bank, retention of water necessitates growing Merlot. And they make when you grow it in clay, it takes on this real charming, richer character. And so, the most expensive wine potentially in the world, well, you might argue that's in Burgundy, but in Bordeaux, the most expensive wine is a right bank wine called Petrus. And then there's some others that rival it every once in a while. But Petrus is selling for north of $6,000 a bottle now. And it is right in here in Pomerol. It's 100% Merlot grown in what they call blue clay. All right, so that's a lot about that stuff. What we're here to do tonight is taste 5 really good value wines. And to set the stage for that, Bordeaux is a very significant producer of wine. This, by the way, this map of Bordeaux shows a pretty nice, good, large growing region. But how large is that really? Well, if you've been to the Napa Valley, this is 8 times larger than the Napa Valley. And if you add up all the Bordeaux that's made, it's the largest production in France. Now, they make a lot of small production wines, so that you have to add them all up together, and Bordeaux is the largest producer. But if you go out to, like, say, the Côte d'Aron, the largest production is Côte d'Aron, because there's so many producers making a Côte d'Aron, you add that up, and that's the largest single type of bottling. But here, if you add up all the production in Bordeaux, it is the largest producer. We're going to start off tonight by drinking a white wine from Bordeaux, which, by the way, composes only 3% of the total production in Bordeaux. So white Bordeaux is kind of an anomaly. It is one of my favorite ways of drinking Sauvignon Blanc. This would be kind of a little bit more of an oxidative style, a little bit of time on lees, and they do blend it, especially in tonight's example, with a grape called Semillon. Now, this is a bottle of wine that sells at $12.95. So it's a particularly nice find. I think the package is, just right on time. It looks very classic. It's a 2019. These wines do not need to be old to be good. When you spend $6,000 on a bottle of Chateau Petrus, you kind of need to wait about 10 to 15 years to drink that wine. You spend $12 on a bottle of Bordeaux, it's probably ready to drink the day you buy it. Let's take a look at this Bordeaux Blanc. Swirl it around, give it a sniff. And there's very unique aromatics in the wines of Bordeaux. They're going to be very earthy, and they really smell like the soils that they come from. This one's the soils plus that high-end, I want to say highly aromatic smell of Sauvignon Blanc. And the Semillon has some unique features too. Gonna give that a taste and see what you think. I'll ask for some reaction in just a second. But this is a lot of the lower cost wines of Bordeaux are made in what are called cooperatives. And this is kind of a small semi-cooperative because it's a very distinct group of small scale farmers. They were getting kind of robbed by selling their fruit to the cooperatives when they were smaller farmers with nicer estates, but they didn't have enough land to make a wine on their own. So they bonded together and created their own little teeny co-op. And they do things all together. They grow their grapes. There's no $1 million winemaking budget or winemaker budget. They're not celebrating any champion budget, but they're really trying to deliver something dependable. I have carried this wine now for 3 vintages. 2019 is very good. And you have to keep into context, how much are we paying here? It's a bottle of wine that's at $12.95. And I believe it really over delivers. I don't think that you can touch this in quality here in California at $12.95. A Sauvignon Blanc just doesn't have the kind of charm and weight and concentration. And there's some really nice acidity here. But that's where it's kind of an individual choice too. You might not enjoy all of the earthiness that this presents. It is very earthy. It carries 12.5 alcohol, whereas a California Sauvignon Blanc might be north of that towards 14.5. This has higher natural acidity, which gives it actually a little bit of age life potential in the bottle. I wouldn't necessarily recommend aging this wine, but you could. This is stainless steel tank. There's no wood here, but there is time with lees. About 6 months, and that's about all that the wine needs is that gravel, that sand, the blend, Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, and 6 months in the tank, and that's how we get to the nose that we have right here. And with that, how do you enjoy the first wine? Any comments? Do you enjoy it? Not enjoy it? That's okay too. You don't have to love this wine. I just think it's a good place to start. I see Janice give it a thumbs up. You're welcome to talk on our side too. Come on in and say something if you like.
Well, Betty, this is Christine. Betty and I really liked it.
Ah, hi, Christine.
Hi. It's a lot more complex than a California Sauvignon Blanc, and it's got a lot of interesting things going on where a lot of Sauvignon Blancs don't. And the Semillon I've always liked too. We had it with our tomato soup from a French. We had French.
Oh, you guys did it up right. All right.
You always get to go with whatever you're doing.
I thank you. Well, I will say, my family, we make wine here in California, and I know that California producers can make some great Sauvignon Blancs, but when when I taste versions that are on the lower cost side, they're really working hard trying to make the flavors enjoyable. They have to pick our Sauvignon Blanc when it's basically not quite even ripe. And here they've got the ripeness, but there's not a lot of sugar accumulation. That's why you have 12.5 alcohol. And in California, we are picking kind of underripe grapes, and that's why we smell so much green, grassy aromatics in our California Sauvignon Blanc at the low end. And Semillon just doesn't work very well, or we haven't figured it out yet. Let me put it that way here in California. And I really think they've got their game on. This is a classic style for Bordeaux, the Semillon-based style. Now, Semillon also has another job that it could do. It can make the great dessert wines of Sauterne, but here it's a dry, clean, but very earth-oriented wine, and it has great food application. Yeah, hi, go ahead.
This is Paolo.
Hey, Paolo.
I enjoy it quite a bit. I read on the back of the label this chamomile note that it has, and it's quite amazing if you really put your nose in the glass how that's popping out.
Oh, cool.
My question was, is it 50-50 Semillon Sauvignon Blanc? That's typical white Bordeaux.
Yeah, that is typical. There is a third grape called Muscadel that they can use in white Bordeaux, and some producers would, but in this particular version, and there's also Bordeaux Blancs that could be 100% Sauvignon Blanc, and there's some that could be even more Semillon, but in this particular version, just 50-50.
Would like 100% Sauvignon Blanc taste more greener like Californian, or it's not the Semillon that makes it taste this way?
Yeah, the Semillon does add a unique feature to this wine, but I think you'd have a hard time telling 100% Sauvignon Blanc from this particular wine right here. That earth really comes shining through in the Bordeaux Blancs. What I'd love to encourage you to do over time is try to find some of the taste and enjoy this kind of Bordeaux version. And a lot of this wine is coming from the very south in kind of larger production with larger yield areas. There's an area down there called Entre de Mer, and that's where a lot of the value wines are grown. They have larger yields, and they're kind of set up to be that way. If you can step into a nicer, single appellation wine like Pessac Léognan, that's a big step for Sauvignon Blanc. And then they might even start putting some wood on the wine. And of course, the price is going to start jumping. We have some Bordeaux Blanc that touches $30 a bottle, and then you can get into the $150 a bottle. At Chateau Aubryon, which is one of the most famous Bordeaux houses in Graves, they have a red wine that they release, and let's say the current release for Aubryon is around $1,000. I'm not even quite sure, but it's usually around $800 to $1,000 depending on quality, and goes up from there. The white wine is at least $500 more a bottle. So they are releasing Aubryon Blanc at $1,200, $1,400, $1,500 a bottle. And it's actually even more desirable than the red because they barely make any. And it's considered one of the great white Bordeaux's in production. So something interesting. But I love the way these age. I think that this white Bordeaux is kind of a white wine for red wine like lovers. It has a lot of red wine personality, and so it is possible that someone who doesn't like white wine could like this one, and it's possible for this to have a little bit different food application. So with that, we've got 4 other wines to try. So let's move on into wine number 2. Unless anybody else has a question or a comment about our first one. All right, wine number 2, Chateau Lanaude.
Get your bigger glass.
Chateau Lanaude.
Get some.
That's a water glass, isn't it?
No,
Look how pretty that is.
it's from Foley.
It's a Foley.
Oh, Lanaude is a 2015 wine, and I was introduced to this wine recently. So I grabbed, and when I found out they had 15, I said, "Oh, you still have some 15?" I said, "Oh, how much is that wine?" Oh, I better grab about 5 cases. So that's what I did, and it's gone. We still have the 5 cases. We just got them, but the 15 is gone from the distributor. So they're now going to move from their selling the 15 to selling the 17, 18, or 19. I'm not sure how far up the ladder they jumped, but it's nice to have a little time with these wines, because in Bordeaux, it's cooler, a little more rain, a little different growth cycle, and a little different mentality in the winemaking. The winemaking here in California, we're going for fruit, and we're capturing that fruit orientation. We're even putting the name of the fruit on the bottle, right? Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot or whatever. In Bordeaux, they're going more for a stylistic Bordeaux, and so a little bit earlier harvest. But again, these vintages are getting a little bit more like our California vintages, so alcohol levels have been creeping up. This one says it's 13.5, and that's actually pretty nice. When we get into some of the more expensive wines, you could see a lot of the Bordeaux's hitting the 14.5, 14.75, and maybe kissing 15%, which they've done many times in the history of Bordeaux. It's not just a recent thing. The great vintages of the past, like 61, 49, 47, those are like crazy, auction vintages. Those are all about 15% alcohol, some of the ripest vintages in the history of Bordeaux wine. But 15 was a beautiful vintage. Everything worked out very well in Bordeaux, and people thought, well, that's about as good as it can get. And then 16 came along and rivals it. And some producers made better 16s than 15s, and some did better in 15 than 16, but they're both awesome. And the weather cooperated. They were dry, warm years, but there's some really nice wines being made. And this one's one of them, 60% Merlot, 30 Cab, 10 Cab Franc. This one is imported by a company called Mazinoise. And this wine comes down here into the Saint-Emilion region, where most of this fruit is coming from. And in Saint-Emilion, that's a pretty typical blend now. Now, I used to be able to say, they don't grow any Cabernet over here. Well, that started changing as things got a little warmer. I told you, Cabernet does not like to sit in puddles. So they find these little islands of limestone where the clay isn't there, because the clay retains the water. So they'll find these drier spots in the vineyards and the hillsides and things like that. And they'll just plant like rows of Cab where it works. And so this is a 60, 30, 10, and that's becoming a little bit more common. Here's a nice look at what Saint-Emilion would look like. Really dense in vineyards, but the one problem for the right bank side is that a lot of the land is owned in small lots. So they might own, 5 hectares, 10 hectares, 20 hectares. On the left bank, they'll own 1,000 hectare vineyard. They'll own, 2,500 hectares. There are large estates that can make lots of wine. And so when the king's wine expert classified Bordeaux in 1855, he only classified the left side because the right was way too difficult to do and had way too many little pockets of ownership. All right. This particular Lanaude is, I anyone that speaks French can step in anytime and help me correct and fix my French pronunciation, but I'm going to hit this button and let it tell you where it is from.
Goriagais. Goriagais. Goriagais.
Hope you got that. Goriagais. And this is a right bank village, Goriagais. It is traditionally farmed with minimal intervention. It has achieved an environmental protective status because of their commitment to the land and sustainability. So that's one of the features that this brand has that a lot of the other brands haven't achieved. This one spends 21 days on maceration. That's the time spent with the berries. And that's pretty common for a red wine. That's what a lot of our California reds would say. It's about 20 days of maceration. And then you've got a cooler maceration in stainless steel. And then they bottle this down and wait 24 months to age it. Now, I was talking about this earlier. In California, we make wines, we call it Cabernet, and we're focused on making it smell, taste like Cabernet. But here it's about making Bordeaux, and it smells like the place that it comes from. And that right bank with that clay and that earth and the weather and the way they're picking it, and that lower alcohol, 13.5, not 15%. You can really smell that almost wet clay, wet earth. I get smells like pencil lead, graphite, they might say, but it definitely has some kind of tobacco, wet leaf. When you finally get to the smell of the fruit, they would call it cassis, maybe a little bit of a mint element. Might finally get to a thing where you can maybe smell some mocha. Going back and just checking my price point. Where are we at here? We're at $16.95. I think it's a really elegant, nice presentation, right bank. It's got the Merlot kind of earth clay thing. It's got that Cabernet, eucalyptus, mint, and a little bit of those pencil shavings and complexity from the Cabernet Franc. Here's a little bit more about the certification, High Environmental Value Award, the HEV. And that's one of the selling features of this wine. Very minimal intervention, so no herbicides, pesticides. They're going to let the grasses grow to keep nature in balance. That's a nice wine. I'd love for you guys to tell me, how's that treating you? Is that acceptable to you? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Anybody not like it that much? I see lots of thumbs up. Glad you like it. I'll tell you, I opened this yesterday, and the first bottle I got, I brought it home. I took a taste. Yeah, that's pretty good. I ordered some from the distributor. Like 2 days later, I came back and I wanted something to drink, and I had this Bordeaux open. I poured another glass, and I was like, damn, that's been open for 2 days. It's pretty solid. And it's drinking just as good right now. So it's got some good innate qualities to it. I think it's just a solid little performer. Wine number 3. I will say that I put this into our event I was a little scared to present this wine today because we go in wine retail. Sometimes you have stuff moving. This was one of our best selling wines last year. So I bought a chunk of this wine. And as I put this program together, I built the website out and put it up on the website. I had barely sold any bottles in the last 6 months. And sure enough, over the last month, I got multiple pretty large orders. And I may only have a few bottles left of this one. This is a little more exciting and fun. This one carries 63 Merlot, 20 Cab Franc, 9 Cab, and 8 Petit Verdot. It also carries biodynamic distinction and comes from a vineyard way out here on the extreme eastern side of the right bank in Sainte-Foy. These grapes are all hand-picked, so this is not tractor work or anything like that, but this part of Bordeaux is kind of like the part least traveled. So the grapes out here on this side of town really don't have a high value when it comes to selling off this fruit, but here we've got a single estate. And these guys are working extra hard, all handmade, passionate. They're making their own wine. And take a look at that cellar. If I counted those barrels, I think there's probably less than 100 barrels there. That's 25 cases per barrel, 100 cases, 2,500 cases. That's probably what they make with this wine. In the vineyards, they're cutting back, getting ready for the next growing season. They're going to leave that one cane to grow as kind of the lead, the one spur there, and they're going to cut that vine back, make it regrow, and that's where that energy of the harvest comes from. This producer, not a lot of information. My designer, I could tell she ran out of info on this guy, because 2,500 case producers, no website. We worked hard even to get pictures like this. But on the back bottle, in French, 2015, this is their own little vineyard. They are very protective of their place, establishing biodynamics, certified biodynamic, 2,500 case producer that's certified biodynamic. That's almost insane, because at this price point, the cost of being certified biodynamic is almost, I'm sure they're not making any money. That's a really expensive thing to do, to get the biodynamic certification and to not make a lot of wine. So last year, a really good performer, kind of went to sleep on me. So I brought it back up just to, maybe it's because it was so far down on the Bordeaux page or whatever. People are like, he can't have much of that left. But sure enough, people started pinging that right around Christmas time, which started to see some nice lift in sales. I'd love to see what you think of this wine. I think it's probably one of the better wines of the day. I think it shows a little bit more of that Merlot character. It doesn't have more than the wine before. I think it's going to be a personal choice which one you prefer. There's something kind of a little lift, like a citrus peely type of a thing happening, or citrus pith on the finish, a little kind of tartness, bitterness.
Orange. Sorry, just looked at that as
I mean, we had this with our coq au vin. It was really
Yeah.
good.
All right.
Really good.
What was I want to know the full menu.
I was just thinking that too. Like, you guys.
We always do this. We always do a full menu of whatever we're tasting with Ian.
All right. So you started off with, you said a soup, right?
Tomato basil. Well, no, it wasn't even tomato basil. It was really
No,
good
no,
though.
it
It was a French
it was
tomato.
cream.
Really good. We had the white Bordeaux with it, and we had this with the coco bean.
All right.
Those are the only ones that we sneaked in advance.
Okay. Oh, I see. There you go. You got some more coming. You got a cheese course. What else you got?
No, we just have dessert. We have a
Tahitian rice pudding.
Tahitian
Ooh.
vanilla rice pudding. This is
Very
a little tiny. It's
Dominique's.
like Dominique's. It's like being in a living room, and it's right down the street in Redondo Beach. And they did a fabulous job during the pandemic. My daughter and I ate there like once a week. It was all pickup, and they still do a wee Wednesday where they have a special fixed price 3-course pickup. So we always
Perfect timing Wednesdays.
that would be good for this. Yeah,
All right. Well, cool. Well, next time I'm in Redondo Beach, I'll check it out.
check it out. Yeah,
Dominique.
Dominique is from France, and he's
Elle est français.
it's a husband-wife little place, and they're very nice people too.
Excellent. Does anybody have any favorite French restaurants around your house that we could mention?
We were just talking about that. There used to be a ton here in the South Bay, like 20 years ago. Not too many left.
Yeah, the French restaurants were pulling back years ago because think about what's happened with everything from food trucks to the casualness of dining. They certainly represented kind of the past eras of dining.
Yeah.
I mean, can anyone even name a tableside restaurant anymore? That used to, when I was a kid, that was the fancy place in town, was the tableside restaurant.
Lowry's.
Well, Lowry's, but it's not
Oh,
French.
Lowry's, yeah, but even more like tableside preparation with, the flambés and other stuff. That's kind of a lost art, and
Yeah.
to a point where it's probably going to come right back.
I hope so. Well, there is a place that just opened up called Sweet Wheat, and it is boulangerie, and it's really good. It's in Redondo as well. Really good. Two brothers from France. They're probably in their late 20s. They import all their ingredients from France, but it's basically a bistro bakery type of place as opposed to they don't serve dinner, but it's awesome. I mean, everything is amazing. The best baguettes I think I've ever had outside of France.
Oh, wow. Sweet wheat.
Sweet Wheat. I don't like the name. I think it's kind of weird, but I mean, it doesn't infer any French, I mean, it doesn't.
That's true.
They're actually really good. And
It sounds like he's trying to be more of a bakery.
it's a boulangerie, basically.
Yeah.
But it's good. Everything is really good.
Well, very good. And if you think of any other great French restaurants, order them
I'm
out.
thinking of all the ones that have closed, but mostly it was because they were independent, family owned, and they just retired.
Yep.
But they were awesome.
There's also Sweet Lily. It's a French bakery on Ventura. Right. Is
In
it
what
Cahuenga? Yeah, I'm sorry. Cahuenga. Sweet Lily. It's a French spot. It's bistro, bakery, but we go there just about every morning to get fresh croissants and brioche.
There's a place in Culver City called Meat in Paris, which is pretty good.
Okay.
And then there's a place, I mean, you probably have heard of Creme de la Crepe. It's kind of a
Mhm.
franchise, but the original owner from France is in Hermosa Beach, and the original one is really, really good.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of some of my favorites. Some of the standout restaurants in LA, they get the big Michelin 2 stars, certainly have a lot of French influence, like restaurants like Providence, like Melisse, and Melisse being probably the most of the most French that I can think of. But there is actually a French restaurant here in downtown now, but I haven't been there in a while. And it's quite large, and they do some pretty entertaining stuff. It's a fun, festive French restaurant to bring people around.
Little Moulin Rouge.
I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's right on 4th, and it's near Spring. I can't remember, but it's got something very French name, like the French Cafe or something like that. It's got.
So not French.
Lauren, any good French places in San Diego?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I haven't been to any. I've got some good friends that go to there all the time up in, I think it's Encinitas. There's a nice little French place.
Oh yeah,
I read about it for the
Pamplemousse Grill. Pamplemousse Grill is one of my favorites.
That's not French though.
Oh, the name is used to be. Probably he's smart enough to take it away from being French.
I
But
read about I read about two restaurants in Cities that are French, and
Yeah.
that might be one of them. Yeah.
It escapes me too because I haven't been to either one. But I have been to Jeffrey's place, which is Pamplemousse.
yeah,
Incredible wine. This guy, I mean, he's got a wine business as big as anybody.
well, that's what he really kind of mutated to, right? He went after becoming more of a wine retail operation. So it's a restaurant with a wine retail store next to it. That's a great segue. Wally's certainly made that move too. They went from being a traditional retailer to being more of
Market and then
a marketplace. Yeah.
Yeah. The magic is wine by the glass
Okay.
pricing. Wine by the glass pricing. That's what they want.
In Pasadena, there's a restaurant called Pearl. It's been recommended by my wife, who I know has eaten there a couple of times. Without me, by the way. I have not eaten at Pearl.
Oh, and
I'm sorry.
there's one downtown. There's one downtown called Perch.
Perch.
Where it
Yeah,
is.
Perch is famous for the view.
Yeah.
Not so famous for the service or the food, but the view is fantastic.
It's a fun place to go to.
He's right.
There's also a nice location, teeny place in Chinatown called Oriole.
Ooh, cool.
It's a very small French restaurant called Oriole, right next to the subway. Really,
I'm told that is now closed.
no, it's open still.
It's open.
Yeah.
I got one for you. This I should have thought of this one first. AOC.
Oh, yeah.
AOC restaurant, Suzanne Goin.
Yeah.
Certainly a French place, and that's what all these wine regions, follow the AOC wine laws, the appellation of origin control. So that is a very good destination. All right, back into our wines. We're going to go into wine number 4. If you think of any other good restaurants, throw them in the chat box.
Chat box.
Yeah. Okay. Cru Godard, Chateau Cru Godard. This is a Côte de Bordeaux, which means it's on the right bank in the Côte de Francs, and it is an organic wine. You're seeing a little theme here. Lots of high ethos in the grape growing department, which, as the world is warming up, they're able to do this a little bit more because they don't have to spray and protect from all that mildew and stuff like that. But be leery, because there could be vintages that come along that they wish maybe they weren't going for some of those high ethos things, because there's a reason that we were spraying, protective agents to prevent mildew in the vineyards. And if everybody is going organic, it doesn't take long for something bad to come along. It's going to be like a matchstick. Things will go bad in a hurry. But for now, they're using very good processes. And this is a really nice house, Cru Godard, 2015. Let's take a look where we're at. We're in the Côte de Francs. You can see it right there. It's a little closer to the epicenter of the right bank, Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, and there it is in the Côte de Francs. Indigenous yeast, that means natural yeast, the yeast that's in the vineyard. So they pick the grapes, they let the natural yeast go to work, 50% in tank, 50% in barrique. And the barrique would be probably purchased on the secondary market, probably from a better house that used it twice, and then they can buy the barrels for a lot less money. And that's how the barrel world works. A new barrel in America, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. By the time it's 2 years old, that barrel's worth about $250. So that's a huge cost savings. Getting my wine in the glass here. couple nice photos from the house. They're using a basket press. That's what that is on the left-hand side there. And those are some nice photos to get us in the mood here. What was our cepage? Let me see. The back label. Right bank, Merlot. My slideshow didn't tell me the actual proportions. Let me just take advantage of this moment to go into our website. Maybe it said it on that first slide and I didn't pay attention. I'm just going to check. Yeah, it just says Cabin Merlot. So I'm going to take this down and go into our website, Merchant of Wine. And there's a couple different ways to get to Bordeaux, but I would go into France and hit Bordeaux right there. Yeah. It didn't work out so well. Just when you go to hit the button, the screen shifts on you. There's gotta be a word for that in the tech world. That 1 second right before you hit the button when everything moves, just like it tried to do right there again. Just wanted to move. All right, so here's our selection of Bordeaux's, and there's a couple things you could do on our website. You can go up here to these bars here, and you can go low to high or high to low, or you can even look by alphabetical, which might make it easier to find. And then if you just want to see all the new stuff, you can organize it by date. But here's our website, low to high. And here's the Godard. And it too does not give us the percentages. So Cabin Merlot, Right Bank, Côte de France. Let's give it a try.
Hey Ian, this is Paolo. So why do you see this trend in Saint-Emilion and Pomerol that they add more cab to their recipe? I mean, they used to be very much Merlot and then the cab and.
I think it's mostly, Paulo, I think it's mostly at this kind of fighting level, $20 wine price level, that you're seeing a lot of more punctuation from Cabernet. I'm not sure you're seeing that same. A lot of the better wines that I see out there might be 5%, 3%, maybe 10% Cabernet. But these wines really are leaning pretty hard on the Cabernet button.
Okay, yeah, understood.
Yeah.
I found the blend.
And I suspect that some of these houses are being outside of the zones like Pomerol and Saint-Emilion. They have some different soils that they can work with, not necessarily just clay. This one's got a pretty nose, but it's very earth oriented and very clay-like, very Merlot oriented in the nose. There is, after I get past that initial instinct though, I'm getting lots of those Vicks vapor rub type of aromas that tell you that there's Cabernet in the wine. I think we tasted these in the right order. It's got a little bit more on both extremes, and
Right.
a little bit more aggressive tannins, a little bit more body. It's a little rustic too. It's So I think this wine could maybe divide people a little bit more, whereas the other ones are a little more easier to like. I think this one has a little bit more attitude, and
Yeah,
some
it's
of you may prefer it. Does anybody prefer this one?
I do actually. Yeah. And you know, one of the things that really stands out is the finish for me. I think this,
Yeah.
does anybody get that? This is the most balanced finish so far. And I went to the number 5 and I have them in separate glasses. And I think it's the best of the night in terms of
All right.
finish.
Yeah, I do. I think the finish here has got a little bit more, of a prolonged finish. It's got a little bit more dramatic finish. Is that Mr. and Mrs. Evans up there in the right-hand corner, Apollo?
The one that aren't there? No, that's it. No.
Right hand corner.
That's Sarah.
Sarah.
That's my aunt. That's my aunt.
Hey, Aunt.
Hi.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Pleasure to meet you, Aunt.
Nice to meet you. Andrea is the name.
Andrea.
Pretty name.
Thank you, Andrea. We're going to move into our 5th wine.
No.
Paper wrap. Is that what it is? Eucalyptus. It is eucalyptus.
Those spa aromas of Cabernet, the eucalyptus, the mint, kind of those things. If you smell them in the glass, that means there's Cabernet in there, and if they're not there, that means it's probably Merlot. That's a pretty good indicator.
Reads it.
Ian, what's that again? That the tell for Cabernet?
The eucalyptus, kind of call them like the expensive spa aromas, the eucalyptus, the mint, the coffee.
Never been to the expensive spa, so.
Oh, you gotta live, buddy. Gotta live.
Gotta live, yeah.
All right, so we made it through Godard, which was certified organic. Trying to get to our last slide here. Our last wine is called Arbalist, and this was a ambitious project by a true French entrepreneur up in the Napa Valley. He's been making wine for a number of years at Hartwell Winery. The winery sold, Hartwell sold, and the new ownership came to him and said, "Hey, you've been working here for a long time. We'd like you to stay on as the winemaker." And he listened, but he also, started to diversify his portfolio a little bit. And I'm going to come back to this slide in a second because I got to tell you a little bit about him, because this is one of the upcoming stars in the Napa Valley. When he was at Hartwell, he really didn't get the chance to promote himself. That wasn't kind of the style that Hartwell allowed. And so he went out and started to brand himself a little bit. Benoit Troquet is now one of the 5 or 10 winemakers that are really shaking it up in the Napa Valley. The brand that was Hartwell is now called Realm, and this is the winemaker partner at Realm, and he's worked with some great folks. He was mentored by Michel Roland, worked with Andy Erickson, Screaming Eagle, Ovid, Ariada, and has a large set of other projects that he is involved in. This being one of them from his hometown. He was born on the right bank, and he always wanted to get back and make Arbalist. And this is the look at the label, and the Petit Verdot and Cabernet from the left bank, Merlot from the right bank, and Cabernet Franc. So this is a true Bordeaux blend, right and left bank. He makes a good amount in good vintages and does not make wine in tougher vintages. And He made his introduction was the 15 vintage, made a good amount of 16. And then I think he took 17 off, but we'll find out a little bit later. 16 was a pretty big effort for him. Color-wise, it's probably one of the darker wines that we've had this afternoon. That's very much in line with his style. He really likes to extract character. And this is a wine that sells for around $20. It really showcases a little bit more modern edge to it, a lot of more use of wood. You can actually smell that mocha, vanilla in the nose of the wine. Sarah, do you like this wine?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Paula?
We like the Arbalist the best.
Yes, that is my number one.
And I would say second is the Krugegard, Chateau Krugegard.
Yeah, this definitely has, like, I think the sensibilities where people maybe don't like some of the earthy things that we saw before. So this one's pushing, I think, both ripeness and richness and freshness too.
Right.
And that caramelization that you get from the wood is pretty evident. That kind of toasted vanilla, it's kind of there. You can even feel that in the mouth a little bit. It's got some of those wood grains kind of in the mouth, a little wood tannin.
Yeah.
Janice, what are you thinking about the Arbalist?
I think this is my favorite one. I like the last one. So I agree with Lauren, but like, I think this one beats it out a little bit for me. It's a little softer.
Cool. So it's a little bit of a classic style Godard versus more modern style from Arbalist. And that may also, again, kind of split the room a little bit. But I think this wine, and all of the wines that we just tasted here today, I want you to think really hard about what can you get in California for $20. And it's really hard for a California producer to make something that has a sense of place, a sense of like quality about it, inequalities. And these are things that they can do in Bordeaux pretty well. And so I think it's an appellation that delivers good value proposition. I do think that you can also kind of lean into the vintages a little bit, trust those a little bit. And if you can find out about which are the greater vintages, just for right now, 15 and 16 are getting a little harder to find. And as I'm ordering these wines, I'm seeing some 17s, 18s, and 19s. Again, there hasn't really been a bad vintage in Bordeaux until I think 2021 is going to be pretty tough there. They had some really tragic things happen with cold frost.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the wines are going to be bad. It just means there's no supply. And that means probably with no supply, there's going to be only good wine. Because if they bothered to make it and were bothered to get the fruit in, it's going to be pretty well looked after. So those kind of things happen in the wine world, and just
Soft. Yes. Velvety. Yeah.
kind of does catch up to us. Richard, I'm happy that you joined us tonight. How are you?
That's Richard.
Richard and
Doing good.
hello.
Hi, we're from Casitas, New Mexico, just south of Santa Fe.
Oh, fantastic. Were we able to send you the wines?
Yeah, we got them early, on time, early, and they're fantastic.
We sent you bottles, didn't we?
Yeah, you sent us bottles. They're
For our friends that are outside of the state of California, that's a great way to go. We could get the bottles sent on the slow boat. It doesn't cost a lot of money to get them there. And that works ultimately pretty well. Getting wine overnighted to New Mexico is about the most expensive shipping state that there is in the United States. Yeah. I don't know what it is about New Mexico, but man, getting stuff there in a hurry sucks. So I'm so happy we could get you bottles and take it nice and slow.
So, unmuted.
Yes.
No, yeah, I hear you. Yep.
I would just say that I thought the last two were the most unique. I mean, they had some really interesting things that are not typical. We had tried the first and the third with our dinner. They were both awesome. And the white, I'm not a white preferer, but that white was really good.
I'm glad you.
And none of them were bad. I mean, they were all winners.
Solid, right? Solid. That was kind of the
solid. Yeah, it's not. And I've had the last one before. I've had it in a couple of other wine clubs, so I've had it before. But I enjoyed it tonight more than the other times because I think we talked about it. So, kind of adds to the experience a little bit. Anyway, I enjoyed all the wines and you did a great job. And I'm glad that we did this because I'm going to be more open to Bordeaux because, as you said, it's a good value. You can't get wines like this for $20 and under in California.
Sometimes the one thing about Bordeaux is sometimes it's hard to get the same wine twice because you don't buy if a producer or restaurant doesn't buy a lot of it, they go back to buy it again and it's gone. Yeah. And I think that's part of the challenge for people because you can't really develop a relationship with the brands very well. But we are, we're getting a little bit more aggressive now. As a store, we're in our kind of second, third year of doing what we're doing, and we're taking it very seriously. We've made the big investment. We moved to a warehouse space, and so we're gonna continue down this path of wine retail. We'll continue to try to produce some events as well when that time is right. I do carry a pretty exotic selection. Kind of, I would say, there's certainly a lot of stores that have a bigger selection than I do. But I've tried to kind of pick my partners pretty carefully on the low end. If you want to step up a few dollars, kind of go a long way. I love this white Bordeaux Chateau Roquefort. It's a big step. It's a single estate, and it's a really nice white second step. And 19 is very, very good. I hear somebody talking to me. And then let me see if I'm in price order here. Yeah. We still show some Godard. Like I said, the Chateau de Champ, La Petite Champ is the biodynamic wine is getting pretty thin down to bottles on that wine. I have several cases of the Node. And Arbalist, I'm very heavy on Arbalist.
Really?
So I think it's going to be a great wine long term. I think it has some really good aging potential. It's just really in a good spot now. But all those individual ingredients will continue to marry. I think it's, if I could buy enough to last 5 years, I would. I can't, but I will. I have at least 10 cases in stock, so we're going to have that for a while. And then once you get over that $30 threshold with Bordeaux, you start seeing some little bit more unique, singular, higher tier efforts. And I kind of top out at around $50 before I jump into the gonzo expensive range. It gets up there pretty quickly as we also carry some of the elite superstars wines that get 100 points, 98 points. Kind of the gifting wines. And you could definitely spend as much as you want on Bordeaux. It'll go there. I carry some on both extremes, but the value is, a number of bottles. I sell, 10 cases of this Bordeaux Blanc to any one case of $50 stuff. So it really slows down after you get over $30 a bottle. But these type of guys are fun to grab, and we will start to see some 18s and some 19s as they go to reorder, and they'll drink right away. They're fun, and I always taste the wines before I bring them into the store. So if you if you trust me, you'll find something at the best price point that we can in that area. And I'm able to be very selective because we just don't have a big enough store to carry thousands of wines. with that, we've got our Stars of California coming up in a couple of weeks. Next week, we're doing something. What am I doing next week?
29th?
24th.
Is that the 29th or what date is that?
26th is Stars of California. Let me just go into my Zoom and wine. We sent out the ad for next week's top wines. These are the 5 best-selling wines of last year, and with the qualifier that I still have them to sell. But I did grab large chunks of Moss Grand Plagnol, which has just been a champion, and it's a really amazing $14 bottle. The Chaparello Vino Verde, it's like Vino Verde plus. It's so good, 15, 16 bucks a bottle. The Up Provence Rosé, around 20 bucks a bottle, our best-selling rosé last year. The Stackhouse Cabernet, if you haven't tried that before, I would love to introduce you to it. Really good $30 bottle of Cabernet from Napa Valley, and it's hard to put those words together sometimes. $30 and really good, not always happens. And then this one's kind of a wine that I'm super proud of. The Bodega Chakra is from Patagonia, Argentina. This is the nephew of Tenuta Sanguido or Sassicaia in Italy. He moved to Patagonia and is growing. He bought a vineyard that was 80 years old and nursed it into health. He's got amazing partnerships and friendships who are coming down to help him from Burgundy, from California, from other places to make the wine really good. James Suckling awarded this wine 93 points yesterday, and we've got a good supply of it. It's a Pinot Noir that's under $30 that got 93 points, and it's super charming and pretty. So those are going to be our top 5 wines of 2021.
Yeah.
As soon as we got the Barda in stock, by the way, we immediately sold like 10 cases of it very quickly. So it shot up the charts, and gives us a shot to taste something really cool, very hip as well. That producer is absolutely worldwide famous. People are going to find out about it, and it's a really good wine to get to know. So those are our next couple of weeks. I hope you guys will join us, and I thank you for being here. And some of you I met for the first time, but I hope not the last. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you very soon, everybody.
Hey, Ian, could I say one thing?
Yeah, please.
I just want to say that I've been a customer of yours since, maybe 2005. And I've learned a lot from you. I just appreciate all of the classes that you do, your events. I mean, I've really learned a lot from you. And it's
super kind.
Awesome.
I want to say something about you. You are so supportive. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it when you share my Facebook posts and all that stuff. I notice it.
Share things that I really believe in and think are good.
Thank you. It means a lot to me.
So anyway.
Thank you, guys. Linan, did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, hi again, Ian.
Pleasure to have you guys.
Time.
Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good to be here. And Satsuko in Japan, always good to have you on the Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she is tuned in and a wine fan, and always nice to have Satsuko joining us.
Yay.
Thanks, everybody.
Cool.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, Lauren. Always great to see you, buddy. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye now.